Great. Good morning. Welcome. We're going to get started. We have a very small group today, which is okay. I'm Ashley back with Region 2 Human Services. Normally, Bonnie Bauer does introductions because she's a Systems of Care Coordinator, but she's in California, lucky her, so she is not here today. So we'll just go around and do some quick introductions here, where you're employed and kind of your job title, and then I'll hand it over to Brandy and Lou.
So the other side can see you.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, okay. I can hear you.
Good morning. We're going to get started here in North Platte. I'm Ashley with Region 2. So we're just going to have the North Platte go ahead and do some quick introductions here where they're employed and their job title. And then I'll hand it over to Brandy and Lou to get started. So, would you like to start?
Sure. My name is Jamie Peters. I actually work for the college over just down the hallway in Human Resources and Employee Wellness, and I'm here today as a parent, just to learn about all this good stuff. Welcome. Thanks.
My name is Mike Langley. I'm currently unemployed, retired.
Okay. Go ahead. Yes.
My name is Amanda Navarrete, and I work with Family Scale Building. I'm a youth and family support worker / tracker.
I'm Laura Ballard, also from Family Skill, and I'm a family support worker and tracker.
Perfect. Ladies in the back.
I'm Megan Lantis. I'm an inclusion facilitator and transition coordinator at ESU 16. I'll be helping with the presentation on the piece.
Perfect.
I'm Lori Back. I work for ESU 16. I do inclusion and transition facilitators, and I'm here to support.
Yes. Do you want to do introductions?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys do some introductions in the McCook and Lexington area? In Oklahoma? I don't know if this is all on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead. Okay, McCook, do you want to go ahead and start, please?
Okay, I'm Becky Reddle. I'm principal at St. Patrick's School here in McCook.
I'm Laura Noakes, and I'm a special education teacher with McCook Public Schools, and I'm at St. Pat's, and I also do Title I instruction at St. Pat's as well.
I'm George Young. I'm a counselor.
Welcome. Michaela and Oklahoma, can you guys introduce yourselves real quick? How did you look so
Michaela Crawford, Region 2 Youth Care. Jess Hanson, Family Skill Building Services, so family specialist and tracker.
Perfect. Well, welcome. And I will have Brandy and Luke come up and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. Take it away, Ms. Brandy. Okay.
It's weird, I can't see myself, but you guys can. So, hi, I'm Brandy Busher. I am presenting with Lou and Megan today. I'm going to just take the section on 504s. They were gracious enough to let me go first because I have another meeting that I have to sneak out to. So, I'll be doing this section, and then they're going to jump in on IEPs. So, some of this stuff is going to feel there's going to be a connection, so I would just ask, at the end we can talk about 504s. Some of the questions are going to lead into questions I think about an IEP that will be answered by Lou and Megan as well. So why would a parent or a district consider implementing a 504 process? So what the requirements really have to be, does the district believe that the student has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity? Or is the student in need of either regular ed or supplementary services or special ed and related services? So that's kind of a confusing definition. So what does that mean? So the term substantially limits is really not clearly defined, and it's left up to each school district to determine what that is. So that could mean that a student has a 504 in one district, and if they're moved to another district, that district's definition of substantially limits may not be the same. So 504s can look different, or they may not. You should try to transfer them, but depending on that definition, they may not be transferred. The term disability under Section 504 is defined as a physical impairment, has a record of such impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activity. So now what does major life activity mean? This definition has actually changed a couple times over the years. Currently it's defined as caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, seeing, hearing, eating, sleeping, walking, standing, lifting, bending, speaking, breathing, learning, reading, concentrating, thinking, communicating, and working. The learning, reading, concentrating, and thinking have all been added over the last 2 years. So in the past, those were not in the definition of major life activity. So that's something new to 504s, and we can kind of get into maybe how that may impact schools and school districts thinking about a 504. So some of the different reasons for a 504 would be an episodic impairment. So that can be asthma, Crohn's, IBS. Basically, the definition for that is any type of illness or disease where there's episodes. So meaning that the episodes could come and that could impact a child's learning or ability to be in school. The district cannot take into consideration mitigating measures. And basically what that means, so if a student comes forward that has, for example, IBS, the district can't say, yeah, but they're on medication, so we don't need to do a 504. So mitigating measures really cannot be taken into consideration when considering a 504. Some of those things could also be equipment, like adaptive equipment, or even like therapy or some type of licensed mental health therapy. We can't consider that as a mitigating factor and not move forward with a 504. Transitory impairment, that's another reason, and that's something where it's an impairment that could be in a duration of 6 months or less. So for some districts, what that could mean is you may have a child who breaks his right arm and is in a cast and he cannot write. So that would be a transitory impairment. And it means that there's going to be a duration of time, but it may not be an ongoing impairment for that child. So what if the impairment does not impact the child's learning? So the child still may need a 504 plan. Basically, the focus is on the disability and the child having access to services. So it may not impact their learning right now, but down the road they may have a problem with access to learning. Some examples of a disability that may not impact a student's learning, but they would still require a 504, could be like a severe peanut allergy, or a diabetic student, or even an asthmatic student. So the asthma itself may not be something that could impact learning, but untreated, or just maybe there needs to be a plan to prevent an asthma attack. And 504s can also go hand in hand with a health plan with the nurse. So it's important that nurses understand 504s and why a child may be on a 504. And it's really important that nurses be a part of that conversation. So if a school district's implementing a 504, the nurse really should play a really important role in that process. So some of the reasons why you would request a 504 is if a parent can request a 504 due to a health concern. Parents can request the evaluation. A lot of requests for a 504 is going to look really similar to IDEA for a request for an IEP. And some of those interventions and processes will look the same. Another reason would be a possible student returning to school if they were in a car accident or had a serious injury. 504 may be more appropriate for that student. And then also, if you go through the process and they did not verify for special ed services, a 504 could be an option. With the changes in some of the definitions regarding 504, anxiety, ADHD, mental health diagnosis are all areas where a parent or a school district could initiate the 504 process. I put here a parent must provide medical documentation. That's not necessarily the case. They don't have to have medical documentation, but as we go through how you would evaluate whether a child needs a 504, that medical documentation is going to play a part in that. So without that medical documentation, it's going to make that process a little harder as far as getting that child the 504. So does a diagnosis automatically qualify a kid for a 504? No, not necessarily. An impairment itself is not necessarily a disability. So again, we talked about it must substantially limit one or more of their life activities. So some examples, and I was looking up some case law last night, you know, some examples could be students that maybe have ADHD, but as a team, they sit down and meet, and they don't feel like the ADHD is really impairing that child's ability in school, meaning behaviorally the child is doing okay. Academically, the child is not struggling. So just having a diagnosis of ADHD does not necessarily mean that a child needs a 504. There would have to be a team decision of people that came together and decided this is really impacting this child in a way that is very negative in one or more areas of school. So components of how you would evaluate for a 504, you can use aptitude or achievement test scores. You can use test evaluation materials, grades. Teacher observations and recommendations are going to be a huge part of that. So teachers' input, again, the medical diagnosis, and that's where having that diagnosis is really useful for schools. Medical conditions, social and cultural background, discipline records, and attendance records. So all of those factors are taken into consideration. Again, just because maybe a student is struggling with grades doesn't necessarily mean that that a 504 is going to be put in place. Time frame. So there's not a really specific time frame. Kind of the rule of thumb would be a 60-day time frame for once the request is made. Basically, the requirements for a district is they do have to provide notice to a parent, letting them know that they've started that process. And they do have to get consent from a parent. So if the parent, this question comes up a lot, if a school district feels like a student needs a 504 and a parent says no, the district does have a right to due process to try and, you know, get the parents to agree to that, or to at least take that to OCR to see if they can get some support with helping that student. But from what I can see from case law, ultimately parents really do play a key role in whether that's going to be implemented in a school. So when developing a plan, it's really important to have knowledgeable team members, and what really we mean by that is really including your school nurse, the teachers, people that know this child and work with this child need to be a part of the plan. Again, the whole group makes a decision about the 504 plan. So as that plan's being put in place, it's important that everybody has input and not just one person is kind of dictating what that plan looks like. The plan needs to be individualized. Again, looking back at case law, school districts that kind of have blanket 504s for kids, those are the districts that kind of end up getting in trouble. It needs to be very unique and specific to that student. Detailed, and also for the sake of the student and for the sake of, you know, especially for students moving from grade to grade, try to keep it as simple as you can. So issues to discuss in a 504, things to consider putting into a 504. The first one would be organization. Again, that's when you would want to bring in people that know this child and work with this child. A school counselor is another really integral part of that. And understanding what some of those challenges could be around organization, environment, that can play a key role, the environment in the classroom, test taking, where that child's going to go, how that child can, how the teacher can assist that child in some of those classroom settings, how the lesson is presented, medical accommodations, again, that could mean like a scribe if a student has a broken hand, or some things like that, and then behavioral issues. So possible accommodations could be preferential seating, extended time on assignments, use of peer notes or a scribe, use of a calculator, books on tape. That's one I see a lot with 504s in our school district. Test given in a quiet or alternate location. That's one you see a lot for anxiety. Some of the other accommodations that aren't on here, but as we talk about anxiety or some of those issues, you can do delayed passing period for students. You can have alternate places for them to sit and eat lunch, alternate places to change for PE and some things like that that can also be a part of an accommodation for a 504. And then once a 504 is in place, what is the reevaluation period? So for IDEA, that's every 3 years. And the rule of thumb is that that's kind of about the same for a 504 unless a parent or the school district feels like it needs to be more frequent. Again, they don't want you to do more than one evaluation in a year, but again, with an impairment that may be just a 6-month impairment, you may want to reevaluate that sooner than 3 years. So it kind of really depends on the student. Some of the other things regards to, because I know we're talking to some trackers and some family support workers here. One of the other things that has kind of been interesting as far as changes in the laws regarding 504s involves drug and alcohol use. So students that are, so for alcohol use, there's a possibility of a 504, but not for drug use right now. So it's a little hitch in the law, I guess, that kind of does say if you have a student who is really struggling with alcohol abuse, you could possibly request that, but not for drug abuse. And I'm not really sure why there's a difference there. The caveat for a student that is verified for a 504 under those two is that if they're verified for a 504 for drug or alcohol abuse, or specifically alcohol abuse, and they do show up to school under the influence, you still have the discretion to go over the 10 days for a suspension without a manifestation hearing. So that's the one exception where the disability, you can, or the impairment, you can suspend based on that impairment. So for all other 504s, if you would have to go through the same process as an IEP, you cannot suspend a kid if you determine that the cause of that behavior was due to their impairment for their 504. So that's when the school district would need to hold a manifestation hearing, sit down with the parents, sit down with the student and the teachers and make that determination of, was this a part of this child's impairment and that's why they behaved in this way, and if so, then that suspension cannot go over 10 days. The only exception to that would be drug or alcohol use, and you can go over 10 days without a manifestation for a 504 on those issues. So that was really fast. I think I talked really fast, but does anybody have any questions in regards to 504, or if you're working with a student, how you could help start that process for a student? Yeah.
I have a question. You said it has to have parental consent. What if parents are divorced and one parent says yes and the other no?
So from what I understand, the custodial parent can consent. And I feel like for some of our court-involved youth and some of our youth that that truancy is an issue, I did kind of look up. We've had some counselors locally ask parents for students that have maybe anxiety to get a 504 in regards to attendance. That's not, attendance is a part of 504, and yes, not coming to school can fall under the definition of it's really going to limit your life activities. But what a 504 can't do is allow a student to not be in school. And that's kind of a misconception that some of our parents have, that if a student has anxiety and they get a 504, then one of the accommodations is they don't have to be in school. So that's kind of a misconception that I've seen in our community a lot with some of our parents, and I think maybe a couple counselors have shared that with parents, that would be a route to go. So just to clarify, attendance could be considered. Yeah, we might need to look at a 504 for a child who really cannot come to school because of anxiety. But within the 504, we're not going to write an accommodation that the child does not have to come to school. So that would be the difference of, yes, attendance could trigger a 504, but it's not going to accommodate the student not being in school.
So I have a question about when a parent really wants the 504 and the school thinks that it's not necessary. What are the steps there?
Yeah, so you guys, it's really just the same as if a parent wants an IEP and you feel like it's not necessary. So you go through the process. This feels weird, I want to look at you, but if I look at you, I'm not looking at you. So yeah, so you would go through the process just like you would for an IEP, and you would pull together all those records I talked about, discipline records, behavior records, medical diagnosis, and then as a team, you guys would make that decision. If the parent disagrees, they have the right to due process, and they can challenge you on that. But it's no different than an IEP. That decision is a team decision. And if you as a team feel like this is not substantially limiting this child's life activities, and you feel confident in that, then you do not have to grant a 504. Does that make sense?
And I'm going to jump in a little bit just because I do sometimes. I think in response to, the parent wants the 504, I would wonder why they would want the 504, and what are they asking for? And then I think the school has to look at that and say, is it worth going to due process and trying to have all your ducks in a row and all the data and all that research to prove that? Or what are they asking for? Is it something that you could really probably accommodate fairly easily and just go ahead with that? Or is it
in the case
something like you don't want to go to school?
I'm thinking of is a student with sensory processing disorder and have executive functioning skills. They lack organizational skills, they lack study skills, and they're smart and they're getting good grades, but they're not independent in it. And what the parent's looking at is down the road when they want to go to college, being able to, without, on their own, have those skills and everything, those executive functioning skills.
Yeah. So one of the things that, as you research 504s and I guess Nebraska state law, one of the things that really pops out to me is just because a child is not living up to their full potential doesn't mean that merits a 504. So you have to show that there is an impairment that is preventing them from having access to basically free and public education. So just because they're not living up to their potential, meaning just because they're not giving it their all, doesn't mean you have to do a 504.
How do you, on study skills, how do you evaluate if they're not giving it their all? What happens if they just, they have never been taught those skills?
Well, I think you evaluate based on their test scores and their grades.
Right, but their test scores can be great, but they have lots of missing assignments, they're unorganized, those types of things. How do you evaluate for that? When the school doesn't see that?
I'm wondering, is it a diagnosed sensory, help me out here, girls.
It's my son. I'm going to be honest, it's my son. He has a sensory processing disorder that was diagnosed in 3rd grade. And I've been pushing for my school to give him executive functioning, some training, and they have yet to do that. And he has no study skills. And looking at going into high school next year, I'm very concerned as a mom who can't be at school and have my finger on him 24 hours a day. I want him to have some independence in these skills. And I feel that as a mom, I can teach him those skills at home, but I can't carry him over to the school without some support from the school to do that. And so that's my frustration. And I'm a special ed teacher, and I'm a teacher in the district, so I don't know how far to push it. And I don't know how to get that data. Because he has good grades. And he does well on tests, but he has several assignments that are late, not coming in, and he's not getting independence. And I looked at your definition about down the road, how it could interfere with his life skills. And when he, you know, and that's where what I'm wanting is I want them to give him study skills.
Sensory processing. Where does that fall on the IEP?
And he can't get an IEP because he doesn't have, sensory processing doesn't fall under a standalone verification under special ed.
Right, but a 504 isn't gonna give you what you need down the road either.
Okay.
What you're saying.
So how do I get what I want for him then if I can't go the 504 route? Because I've paid for tutors for study skills, but if I don't have the support in the school to help him learn how to use those tools in the classroom, use those tools in the, you know, in his life in school, then how do I get him those skills? Do you see where I'm coming from as a parent?
Yeah, I guess the question would be, I guess for you moving forward is, do you feel confident that it is substantially limiting his ability to
it's not,
function in school?
I don't think it's substantially limiting his ability now, but I can see it substantially limiting his ability to continue in college when he goes to college and he doesn't have those skills to be independent. Because that's one of the things in here it said in the future was one of those, you know, that you said back here on this.
And in the future, that was for mitigating, so that was for mitigating issues, meaning like medication or assisted technology. So that's kind of where the in the future holds into, is for the mitigating issues. But I think for you as a parent, if you feel like, you know, this is substantially interfering, and you feel confident in that, you can move forward and ask for due process, and then, you know,
but then my job comes in, but since he is a teacher in the same district, my job comes into play too.
Right.
It does.
And that's always going to be that fine line that you have to play. But we were wondering, is that Laura? Is that who's talking?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that was you. You're like microscopic. We were wondering, have you looked at the OHI option?
Yeah, he does. He won't. Well,
they won't.
No, I don't think he would qualify for that for the other impairment. No, because it's not a standalone, and I don't think even with an OT and the doctor, because you know, I don't think I could get that to go.
Okay.
I have looked at that option, so.
Just brainstorming out loud, even thinking about, you know, it's almost like you need an ally within the district of who can help teach those study skills, and a check-in, and like making sure he's on top of things, especially if you see this as potentially being a concern going into high school.
Well, and you know, I'll be honest, I'm working with another student, and I see it in a lot of kids. The study skills aren't there when you go from complete freedom when you get to high school and you have semester grades, not 9-week quarter grades anymore, and you can turn your stuff in anytime you want and things. You know, I think it's a lot of kids have lack of study skills. And I don't know, you know, so I mean, I don't think it's just my son in general, but.
No, I think we see it across the board. You know, it's the ability to plan forward for the future, and just being a teenager too, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
And you know, in schools right now, you know, homework is different. You know, I mean, my son doesn't have homework. He doesn't have a study hall either, but he rarely has homework. And so that also sets up the lack of study skills for what to do when all of a sudden he gets to high school and he has homework. So anyways, we can move on. That was just a.
We do have some information that we can share with you afterwards. We had a workshop, a day workshop at the ESU 16, probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and it was called Causes and Cures, and it was all about executive functioning and how that's a huge issue for lots of kids, and what that can look like and what are some of the things that we can do for that. So
I'd love to have some
we'd
of
be more
that.
than happy to share that information with you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, thank you. Thanks, Miss Brandy.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna stay. I just have to sneak out a little after.
Okay. Don't leave a message. All right. There we go.
When you're playing the option.
I think we lost.
Makes it an easy choice. There's only one. Where's the? There it is. That. It's not big on my screen, but it's big right here. That's kind of exciting. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Good deal. I'm Lou Cox-Fornander with ESU 16.
And Megan Lantis, I introduced from the back, but you probably couldn't see me.
And Lori Vac is also here. It's the three of us. So, and I guess as I was listening to Brandy, two of the things that she said that made me really think about the whole IEP thing as well, you used the word accommodations, and one of my own personal soapboxes is the difference between accommodations and modifications, and lots of times people use those interchangeably. They want an accommodation or they want a modification. An accommodation, in my mind at least, is something that helps a student have access to the general curriculum in school, but it doesn't change any of the classwork. They're still held to the same standards. They're still doing the same thing. A modification is when we change some of the classwork. We lower the bar, if you will. And the only way a student can have a modification is if they have an IEP and the IEP team determines that. Otherwise, nothing else changes the curriculum or those expectations for kids.
Does that make sense?
Okay. And I think that sometimes just to have that terminology so everybody's kind of on the same page with that. And then what you were saying, Brandy, about individualization. And a 504 needs to be individualized, as does anything with an IEP. It's all about that kid and what they need and how to best serve them. So, this actually is a presentation that we did for a parent series, and we weren't sure who our audience was going to be, and so we thought if y'all are talking to parents and stuff like that, or if you are a parent, then this is the same information that you need. And oftentimes in schools, we are terrible about talking educational alphabet soup. We have acronyms and letters and for everything. And it's like, what does that mean? We don't even know sometimes. So we just call it alphabet soup. Because the first thing we talk about is IDEA. And you think, well, that's a good idea. Well, yes, it is. But what does it really mean? And it means
IDEA stands for Individualized Disability, or no, Individual Disability Education Act. See, I get myself confused. It's the big overarching law that says kids with disabilities receive the education that they need to. It's the law, we have to do it, and if there's concern of how school or functions within the school are impacting the education of the student, then we need to move forward with making sure those needs are being met.
And one of the things we put up here is children with disabilities or older students, if you want to call, if they don't think of them as children, they receive the education they need to think of possibilities, hope for the future, and lead lives that enrich their communities. We want to prepare students to be the best adults that they can be. Now here's the big technology test. Will it work?
We have a great little video to show, if it'll work.
Hello? Oh, look. Oh, look.
It's doing on yours.
Oh.
My son Max has lots of energy and no interest in reading. It was becoming a problem. At school, it was becoming a problem. But my sister's a teacher, and she wondered if Max might need some form of special education. And I said, no way. He's perfect. But she said he can be perfect and still have special needs. She said special education is an umbrella term for all sorts of challenges. Some issues are obvious, but some are harder to identify. I ignored her, but over time, my bright boy...
Well, we're seeing it on this little screen, but it's not showing up on the big screen. Shoot. And it's a great video.
You know how to change it so I can see? Okay.
And one of the things that's not on our presentation is, and I know that some of you are with the juvenile justice system and things like that, and oftentimes we've heard that a judge will say, well, that kid needs an IEP. You go get that kid an IEP, and we can't do that. That's not the way it works. Even if a judge says that the kid needs an IEP, that we can't just go get one of those. It's not like Walmart. You can't go in the IEP aisle and pick one up. There's a process and that they have to go through to get an IEP, and it involves assessments and observations and a team meeting. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but.
So who has to request that? The parent?
The parent can. Oftentimes it's the school. Lots of times the school sees that there's a need. Teachers notice that students aren't performing maybe where they need to. Lots of times a student might come in to school with an IEP. Maybe they got preschool services. If a student has Down syndrome or something like that that's been identified when they were tiny, that doesn't change. You don't outgrow that or it doesn't go away. It's just something that we continue to deal with, and we continue to make plans for that student to help them achieve. So anybody, like a parent can request it if they see that their kid is in school and struggling, and they can request that. It may, like I said, may have come in with them.
We have the video.
My son Max has lots of energy and no interest in reading. At school, it was becoming a problem. But my sister's a teacher, and she wondered if Max might need some form of special education. And I said, no way. He's perfect. But she said he can be perfect and still have special needs. She said special education is an umbrella term for all sorts of challenges. Some issues are obvious, but some are harder to identify. I ignored her. But over time, my bright boy seemed to lose his bounce. He stopped wanting to go to school. He said he was stupid. It broke my heart. Turns out, we're not alone. Many kids have learning challenges, and there's a law called IDEA, which guarantees every child with a disability a free and appropriate public education. In fact, if a learning problem is suspected, public schools are legally required to have the child evaluated, but families may have to request it. If the child's eligible, teachers, specialists, and parents make an individualized education program, that's IEP in EduSpeak, or a 504 plan. legal documents which set forth what the school will do for the child. Sounds simple, right? Well, it rarely is. In Max's case, his first plan didn't have what he needed. Thanks to my sister, I learned that in order to get Max the right support, I might have to be, well, persistent. She helped me research Max's options. Most students getting special services stay in their ordinary classrooms, but get extra support like tutoring or extra time on tests. Some students end up in separate classrooms with specialized teachers, but spend part of the day with non-disabled peers. Finally, a few schools, most of them private, only serve students with specific needs like autism or dyslexia. I found the best path for my child, and you can too. Worried your child might need something special? Do your research. Go to great schools and visit a range of schools. With your help, your child will thrive.
And that kind of shows that different people can request it and it can look really different. So. And I think one of the things that we at the service unit have really become aware of is parents need to be active members, not just of their child's IEP team, but of their kids' education in general, whether it's a 504 or just general education. And so if you're working with parents and stuff like that, encourage them to really get involved in, and to, like the video said, do their research.
And if you are a parent, you know, be your child's voice. You know, if you see something that your child needs to work on, or things that they do at home that they don't do at school, speak up. Keep that communication circle open, because that's only going to be in the best interest of your child. Do we go through those?
I don't think so. By law. And I think that sometimes parents don't know this, but by law, parents are equal partners in their child's individual education program. So, I mean, if you don't like something that's in that plan, you have every right to say, I don't agree with that. I'd like to see this instead, or, you know, could we do this? Because, like you said, you know your kid better than anybody else, because you have that intimate knowledge of the strengths and struggles. And schools write a better IEP when parents are involved. They just do. It's just a better plan. And also, parents need to know that the school can't develop or change or implement an IEP without their consent. And you'd like to think, well, schools would never do that, and most schools don't, but every once in a while you run into a time when a school thinks they know what's best and they just go ahead and try to implement something, and parents need to know that's not okay.
Here comes those acronyms again.
Was that the anatomy of an IEP?
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
One of the things that when we're talking about an IEP, it's an individualized education program for your student, and we kind of wanted to go through the different parts of that and what that entails. And so the anatomy of it, what it's comprised of, and the parts of it. There's the student information.
So you've got just your everyday information: name, age, date of birth, grade, and team members typically is what would be on that first page. And that would, I jumped down because I think we go into that a little bit more, but those that are in attendance at the IEP. And that's where oftentimes the signature page, we see that at a meeting. And that's kind of a signature of attendance is what we've always been told on that very first page. So just note that everyone's at the meeting that needs to be there.
Hello.
Hi.
I think we got the video working.
Oh,
sorry.
We're good. We got it now.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Woo, way to go.
We got a guest appearance.
No problem.
By the tech department.
Love it. That's great. Yeah, this is, I can't, you gotta talk about this, cause I got
Okay.
nothing. This
So,
is irritates
The
me.
next page has changed over the years. You're safe to just call it the present level. It's used to be called the PLET, present level of educational performance. It's also referred to as the PLOP, the PLAF, or the, and it's present level of academic educational functioning or something like that. We're just gonna call it present level. Basically, it should be a narrative summary of where the child is functioning at. And oftentimes it'll be in relation to their non-disabled peers. It'll say, what the benchmarks or the areas would be of academic functioning for those other students, and then where the child lies. And what that's gonna show then is where there's a difference, where there's a need. That's gonna determine that this is where the student is, this is where the other children are, how are we gonna fill that gap? So ultimately, if the present level is written, truly giving a vision and a picture of that child, then those needs are gonna translate into the goals. So.
And I think, if this is written correctly, you're gonna be able to read that, and even if you don't know the kid, you're gonna have a pretty good idea of who the kid is, what their strengths are, and what they're able to do. So it might say something like, third graders are expected to read at the third grade level and comprehend and answer questions and write a 5-paragraph or a 5-sentence paragraph. And then that's what the third grader is expected to do, and the student who has the IEP maybe reads at a first grade level, has trouble answering questions and can only write 2 sentences unassisted or something like that. So then you would see that difference there. So then obviously one of the goals, one of the things that we're going to work on is the reading and perhaps the writing. So this really is what you want to say, like laying the groundwork, kind of the background information, and also kind of setting you up for that roadmap where you're going to go. So this is a super important part, and parents should know if they keep going year after year and this page always looks the same, something needs to change, because it shouldn't ever look the same as it did last year. So.
But you only evaluate that once a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Just like we were talking about, the goals is where come from the need that we've seen. And they can be both academic and functional in nature. So you may have an older student that you're working with that, a goal is to have, supported living, but maybe they don't do so well with cooking. So you would write a goal that would correlate into helping them build their independent skills in the kitchen with cooking and measuring and following a recipe and things like that, as well as the academic piece of raising their reading level, working on writing, their reading comprehension. Social skills can also go in this area. We're seeing a huge focus on social skills, as we should. I think it's just part of our society with what we're dealing with and the lack of. But annual goals can really just be tailored to whatever the child needs.
And especially when those older kids, when they get older, and we start looking at life after high school, and hopefully we're looking at either college or employment. And oftentimes if the gap, like you said, if what they need are those social skills, if that's gonna hold them back from being able to be competitively employed or whatever, then we really need to make sure that they know it's not okay to tell your boss, if one of your assigned jobs is to go in and clean the restrooms, because everybody at the office takes turns going and doing that, you can't tell your boss, I ain't doing that or I'm quitting. Not appropriate, so we need to kind of talk through that with kids sometimes.
And often these should be written in measurable terms so that you can show progress, because this is and I'm jumping the gun again, but progress should be reported out on goals at least as much as you get reports back from school, so like report card time, it's like 4 times a year. And it needs to be written in a term that you can show, you know, they're making progress or they're not. So normally there's some numbers associated with that. 4 out of 5 times, you know, 4 days a week, or with 80% accuracy, as
Something that
charted
you
by,
can measure.
yeah, teacher charted forms.
Oh, you see my cone. Okay. I don't like standing behind this.
I know. Oh, we kind of jumped the gun on that too.
Oh, that's okay. We just get kind of excited. But yeah, progress reporting, just like Megan said, an IEP, I guess if you want to look at it, it's like another class that you're going to get a report on. I mean, so you're not going to just get a math grade from the math teacher, you're going to get a report on those annual goals that you're working on there too.
The services page. This is where the plan gets put into action. And I think so often, sometimes we put the cart before the horse and we don't think of what the needs are, and developing the plan to how that's gonna happen. But really, you talk about the needs, write the goals, and then how are we gonna make it happen? It should be a fluid process. So that could be how often and how much special education service will the child get? In what environment? Does it need to happen throughout the summer? And with that ESY, not all kids. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. ESY is
Extended School Year Services.
which means it goes beyond the school year. It's extended, so that translates to summer services, basically.
But there has to be data to support that the child loses skills over a long break in order for them to qualify for extended school year, that they're at a critical point in their learning so that they are going to keep on with the skills. And it has to be beyond the normal regression. I mean, I think back to when I was in school, and I remember going back like from 3rd grade to 4th grade and starting 4th grade and be like, did we learn that last year? I mean, I just think it's just a lot of kids lose stuff over the summer just because you're not as engaged with it, but it has to be above and beyond, and there should be data to support that.
And so lots of times what teachers can do that's pretty easy is like right before Christmas, you kind of do a little assessment. What does the kid know or whatever? And then when they come back from Christmas, you give them that same assessment. Do they know pretty much the same thing, or did they just tank? Did they totally forget it? And it would be more than just that one time, but you know, is that a typical pattern? And then not just did they tank it when they came back, how long did it take them to get back to where they were before Christmas? And if it takes them 2-3 weeks to get that back, then obviously going all summer long is gonna be a long time for them. And nobody wants to have to go way back, because then that just puts your progress and the growth of that student's skills that much farther behind. So, transition planning. That's our favorite. We get a little passionate about transition planning. Transition is just that life is getting kids ready for life after high school. And I think that one of the things I would like you to share with parents and to know is that lots of times a transition plan, they'll say, doesn't have to start till a kid is 16. Well, when kids are 16, they're usually sophomores sometimes and sometimes juniors. And if you haven't started to think about what your plan is after high school until then, you're waiting a little bit late. So we like to start getting kids talking about that in junior high at least. What are your interests? What are things that you love to do? What do you see yourself doing? And then that also helps you plan those annual goals. If you want to be an archaeologist and you read at the 3rd grade level, we're going to have to really increase that reading level. If you want to be a marine biologist and you don't know how to do chemistry very well, we're going to have to sign you up for that chemistry class. Maybe You'll discover that you love chemistry and you want to pursue that marine biology, or maybe you're going to discover that chemistry is too hard and I don't want to be a marine biologist. What I really love is when I get to go into, when I get to be a teacher's aide and I get to go in and help with the kindergarten reading. That's what I really love, so I'm going to switch up and do something else because I found something else I like better. If we don't give kids those opportunities to explore and learn, then their choices and everything just kind of smush in and they don't have the opportunities like they would. Okay.
The next section is, within the IEP, is the supplementary aids and services. And this is where the accommodations and or modifications that Lou was talking about in the beginning can get laid out. So preferential seating would be an accommodation. Testing in a separate environment where it's not as distracting would be an accommodation. And then the modifications of what changes to the curriculum need to be made. Needs to be presented with less choices or things like that within the curriculum. And then also, this is where assistive technology needs to be explored. So you have a young man who has a vision impairment, and he does great as long as he's got his glasses on and he's got his Chromebook in front of him and it's blown up, but he's given a worksheet and it's just on plain 12 Times New Roman font. He needs to have access to something that can blow it up for him, whether that be electronic or like a little magnifying glass type thing, whatever that can be. That's where that would be listed. And if it's listed there, then the school district is obligated to help provide that for the student. And sometimes that can be vague. You don't want to get super specific because then what if it quits working? You know, needs to have access to assistive technology to help see the curriculum or something like that. Not will use the C pen to da-da-da-da-da.
And the books on tape, I mean, because, you know, we always say books on tape. Well, really, they don't have those anymore. You know, we don't even hardly do CDs. We just audio. They need to have information presented in an audio format, you know, so that they can listen to it. Just being aware of some of that kind of stuff.
This is the percentages, right?
I won't talk about it.
I don't know the formula very well. I always have to ask. The participation is in what degree the child will spend with general education peers and not. And there's a percentage formula that they figure. So say Johnny's getting pulled out for 60 minutes once a day for math instruction or something, then they're going to figure out the percentages of what that is in a whole day. Is it a day or a week? I can't even remember.
I think you can figure it either way. Actually,
Either way.
Per day or per week, yeah.
So it shows how much time they're with their peers, how much time they're not with their peers. And other activities, so like your PE, your music, you know, your specials, those will be listed with peers and or not with peers.
And again, and we put this in because we really feel it's important. And we talked about that signature page, that front page. And then at the bottom of that signature page are places for parents to sign. And I don't even know how many times what happens is that paper is just slid to the parent and says, sign here, and then just initial and agree to that at the bottom. And I get that for teachers, that's just what they do, but parents need to know what they're signing. And it usually is that you've been provided a copy of the IEP at no cost. Evidently, someone sometime charged a parent to make a copy. I don't know, it's just weird, but that's in there. It says that you've received a copy of your parental rights. And if you want your parental rights and they don't offer them to you, to parents, they can ask for them. And that the rights, it's a form, and it just explains the rules and the parental rights that a parent has with their children in special education services and the law. And there's another thing.
Yeah, there's three.
There's three things. Right? And you agree, and you agree to the plan. And if you want something in there, you can say, you know what, I'm not going to sign this today because I would like to see such and such put into the plan, but I'll come back and sign it later. Parents can do that as well.
Lou, just for the
Yes, yes.
trackers and like the region workers.
Oh, right.
Is it okay for them if they're working with a parent who maybe has some learning disabilities of their own or, you know, really struggles with that, is it okay for that parent to request that copy of that IEP before the meeting starts so they can go over that together? They have a right to do that, correct?
Yeah.
They can ask for that. So I think if you're working with a parent that has some struggles of their own, that's a really good thing to try to get that parent to get that in advance, so maybe you can sit down with them.
That's a great idea.
So then at the meeting, they don't feel all that pressure, you know. I think
And
sometimes
people
they
end up
should.
signing things because it's just easier and they don't want to act like they don't know. You're absolutely right. That's a great point, Randy. And just so you know, that's not going to be real popular with the teachers that you're asking that from. Just so you know. But it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah, but
it's
in the long
parent
run,
right,
it
and
saves a lot of heartache, because if you have to reconvene because something they don't like, you know, because they don't agree to something, it's better to have that out there and resolved prior to the meeting even.
Well, and one of my pet peeves in the way the IEP is set up, one of my pet peeves is like you go through the who's here, and then
Child strengths.
child strengths is one of the first things you talk about, and then right under that is parent concerns. And so you've been at this meeting for maybe 5 minutes, and you're going, got any concerns? No. You know, well, if you would wait and address that after you talked about the present level, after you talked about the annual goals, after you talked about all this other stuff, well, yeah, maybe I do have some concerns now. How are you going to make sure that you're implementing that? Or, you know, he hates it when, you know, I hear at home, he hates it when he has to go to PE with everybody else. And you're telling me that that's what he's going to have to do. That might, you know, but maybe the parent didn't know that was a concern until they heard the whole plan. And then sometimes parents feel like they can't come back and express concerns then. I just think it's set up wacky the way we do it, but that's my own personal opinion, and not everybody shares that, and nobody has offered to say, oh, let's change the IEP because Lou doesn't agree with that. Never happened.
But that's another reason why if an IEP can go home early, that even parents without, you know, learning challenges or anything can have a time to kind of mull it over and kind of think about that, discuss it with their spouse or family members or someone else that they feel trusted to talk to, and come with some concerns or questions or input. You know, it just helps better prepare them.
And the other thing I'm going to say, I want kids to be at IEPs. Always. And I don't care if it's a kindergartner or a 12th grader or a kid who's 21. They don't have to stay for the whole thing if they're itty bitty maybe, but I don't think that it always helps focus everybody on why they're there. When they see that student there, this is what it's about. It's not about the math teacher, it's not about whatever, it's about this kid. And if the kid can even, little guys can make a little poster. Hi, my name is Joey. I like peanut butter sandwiches to play with my sister and my dog, Rufus. Yes, because that's my favorite dog. I mean, and that just, you know, I love to play with Legos and watch Paw Patrol. That lets everybody know where the kid is. And then maybe they don't have to, like I said, they don't have to stay for the whole thing because it gets boring and long, but it keeps everybody's focus. And I think lots of times educators are afraid to have kids come in. And they shouldn't be. Little guys should be coming all the way up to big guys. And hopefully, as kids get older, they can even be instrumental in presenting at their IEP and kind of, you know, these are my strengths, these are my challenges, and this is what I want to learn. And I like it when teachers give me a copy of the notes and I can go to a quiet place to have the test read to me. And the kid can know that and be able to say that. I think that's powerful.
The have-tos at an IEP, we always talk about the core four. And so that would be the parent has to be there, one of the general education teachers or the general ed teacher if it's elementary, a special education teacher, and an LEA representative. So some type of like an administrator or someone that has the ability to create, to allocate dollars to resources that a student may need. And then also that comes in where Lou said with the child. There can certainly be more people. Oftentimes there will be, especially if you've got related service providers like occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, mental health counselors, the counselor. I mean, it can become pretty involved, but those core four have to be there. And then if not, the parents can give parental permission for someone to be excused from the meeting, but then their information needs to be documented in a written form. Oh, I went through that. The outside agency I didn't mention, I guess, when the child reaches transition age. So that would be like a VR representative, a DD representative. Who else am I missing? That's pretty much.
We don't have lots of outside agency, but I think the other thing, I guess it's the next one, is the last one of the, parents can request somebody to come with them. I've been invited to IEPs maybe from a parent to come in and just kind of, if I worked with a student during the summer or whatever, I've been invited to kind of give some input at that end. I wasn't part of the district or part of that core four or anything like that, but a parent has the right to invite somebody that they trust, somebody that they want to visit with.
Are we supposed to be done at 10? It's 10:08.
Was it 10 or was it 10:30?
10:30.
Oh, shoot! Let me tell you another story then.
Can I ask a question?
You bet.
I had a concern. So the principal was listed on our list of people in attendance at the meeting. She signed it ahead of time and didn't come to the meeting. And I felt really badly for the classroom teacher that she had no support there. And we're moving him out of that particular school to private school. But I just wondered, I didn't feel okay with that.
It's not okay.
I didn't think so.
No, your gut was right.
It kind of bothered me. I'm like, you left your teacher. Just, what if I got really angry and there was no one to like help her out and like calm me down? Like I would
pay good money to watch you be angry, Miss Jamie. I'm just saying, we can sell tickets to that.
I just, then my mind went there, and I was like, well, that's really crummy. And then the other meeting, she was there for 5 minutes, and the discussion revolved around clipping toenails, because my little guy has sensory issues, and it was part of a bigger picture, because everybody else in the room was brand new to him, except for OT, who's been with us since he was 6 months old. So we were catching everybody else in the room up, and she walked in just for this little piece about toenail issues, and then she left, and was no help. And I'm like, okay, I just solidified my decision to pull out of here. But if they're listed on there, they should be there for the whole meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And sometimes, and that's a really good point, they should be there for the whole thing. Oftentimes, principals or other teachers will say, oh, I need to leave, or they'll want to leave early. And sometimes if parents are okay with it, we can jump to the part that person is going to have input on, and you can cover that. Like if it's the history teacher's there and they want to talk about their piece or whatever, and you can give the okay for them to be excused. But if it's not okay with you, then you can reconvene. Just say, you know what? That's fine, we'll just all stop now, and then we can come back when everybody can stay for the whole thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I could have stopped the meeting right then and said, you know what,
you know what, I don't feel comfortable going ahead without the principal, so we'll just wait and meet again when she can stay for the whole thing.
Okay, that's good to know. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And you can, you don't have to get mad. Like I said, we can sell tickets for that. But just to, it's just matter of fact. And what I've also found is that lots of times, sometimes teachers don't even know that you can do that. I mean, I know some resource teachers that wouldn't know if a parent said that. They'd be going, what? No, but it's perfectly okay.
So the IEP should be reviewed annually, at least annually. And you kind of go over the progress, set new goals, make any revisions, and then move on to the next year. If services are still needed. Sometimes we have kids that, we've made such great progress, we don't really see a need for this anymore. And that also can come through the MDT process, which is every 3 years. Students need to be tested through the multidisciplinary team. And that's where you've got your school psychologists, you can do testing, and academic function, OTs can do testing, PTs can do testing, speech.
Occupational therapists, physical therapists, yeah.
So, and that should be every 3 years.
And at that annual IEP meeting, you're going to cover the whole thing. And again, focus on your child as an individual, not just like, oh, yep, we did that last year, it worked so well, we're going to do it again this year. Well, if you're doing the same thing, it probably didn't work as well as you thought. I just, when we talk about this, again, and I think one of the things that parents don't want their kids to come to IEPs because it turns into well, he can't do this, and he can't do this, and he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that, and it becomes real negative and attacking, and that is not the purpose of an IEP. That is not its intended purpose, and that is not a productive meeting. IEP should be strength-based, and we in education, and I've learned this, I'm an old woman and been doing this a long time, but one of the things I figured out is that we in education are super strength-based and we're real positive most of the time. And then the medical community always tells you what's wrong and sometimes to justify their medical piece of it. And I don't know how, then sometimes the probation and that you guys are kind of more along that medical kind of thing. And so you need to show the deficits and the things that are going wrong so that you can justify services. But typically an IEP should be strength-based. This is what the kid can do really well, and so we want to use these skills to help them fill the gaps or learn the things that they need help in, if that makes sense.
And helping the students identify where their areas of weakness are, where there's areas of strength are, so that they can become their own self-advocates and say, I really need my teachers to shut off one set of lights because it is super bright and those give me a headache. Just those simple little things that they can do to make their life easier and make them able to function within the school environment and all environments. When you think down the road, work-related, whether they go to college or whether they go to employment, if a student knows what they need, if they need the lights on, if they need the information read to them, if you sign up to work at a new company and they give you the company manual and say read this and then we're going to talk about it tomorrow, and it's a big thick manual, then the student needs to be able to say, you know what, I really want to get this information, but I'm not going to be able to read it all tonight. I either need to have it in an audio format or I need a little extra time before I come in and am able to feel comfortable talking to you about that. We want students to have enough knowledge of themselves that they can ask for those things and let other people know what they're going to need to be successful in whatever environment it is. Yeah, so just the takeaways that, this again is from parent or other provider perspective. It's crucial that the IEP team considers everyone's input, that has the best interest of the child in mind. And just know that if a team member can't attend, they can join remotely via Zoom or with written input or postpone the meeting. If you've got someone, or if there's someone that can't be there that you really want to be there, then that can be postponed to a later time.
And it's okay to do
Yeah, and bring other people. If you feel like you need kind of some support, it's okay for other people to come. And you guys may be that, other person for those parents. So get a better idea of what's happening in the school environment.
If you have a good relationship with parents or the kids, by all means, you certainly should be a part of that. We have handouts, and we can email them to y'all in McCook and Oglala. That's where the other people are. Does anybody have questions? Discussions? Things you wish we'd have covered? Things you wish we wouldn't have?
When it comes to IEPs, what do you do when you find out it's kind of more behavioral than a learning disability?
Well, there is a category, so there's different categories in the state of Nebraska. Is there 11? 13?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. But different disability categories that a child can qualify for special education under. And so if there's enough data to support that there's like a behavioral need, then it can be, it can fit under that category, and an IEP can be written the exact same way.
Okay.
So, and then a behavior plan can be put into place of, the student does, throws chairs when he gets frustrated or climbs under the table and does this, and then this is what staff will do to help either not, help de-escalate that before it gets there, or if this happens, and this is the steps that we take. So it's all written in a plan.
And obviously you want to be proactive so that the chair throwing doesn't happen, but sometimes we're not, so then what do we do when it does?
Yeah, and that's where those teaching moments could be for, like, okay, you feel yourself rumbling here, Johnny. What can you do to bring yourself down? Okay. Thank you.
Do you guys have any resources or advice for helping a student advocate for themselves? Like my little guy, if he's hurt, he won't tell you. He's like a dog. He doesn't want you to know that he's in pain or needs help. So he spent a whole recess in the hallway because he couldn't tie his shoes. I'm sorry. And they let him stand there because he wouldn't ask for help to tie his shoes to go out to recess. So he missed the whole recess. But he couldn't see any adults. He was completely by himself in the hallway while all the other kids were outside. And I don't know how to help him ask for help.
Right.
So I don't know if you have any resources that way.
I'm trying to think, how old is your little guy?
He's 6.
He's 6.
I know we have a long way to go with that, but that was one thing that was really frustrating me with the school, because when the teacher was telling me about it at the IEP meeting, is when I heard about it, I was frozen. Like, I wanted to be really upset, and I didn't know what to say, because she was just so proud that she stood in the classroom, and he just stood there, and then the next time around, he made sure that he had the right shoes on so he could go out for recess, but that didn't fix the problem of asking for help and getting himself what he needed. So, and I worry about, when you talk about transitioning into high school, if they know they're struggling, but they don't know how to ask for help, because there's always been a parent there shoving them along. I don't know, and I don't need an answer now.
We've seen it as simple as, and it could be, obviously you don't want to teach in the moment that's causing the distress, because a lot of systems are shut down, and my ability to understand what you're saying to me right now is not there, because really I just need my shoes tied and I just want to go outside and I'm really freaked out right now. But sometimes, teaching up, giving them a nonverbal way to ask for help. So I've seen you've got a green Lego and a red Lego that's in your desk. If I've got a green Lego sitting on my desk, I'm good to go. I don't need anything. If I have a red Lego sitting on my desk, I need some help. And so then a teacher could come in, and so he's taking a step by initiating, putting the red Lego on his desk. I need help, but I just really can't ask. But then the teacher's coming over and noticing, you've got that there, I see you might be struggling, buddy. Or there are tons of ideas out there, but then you can fade that prompt, that support back. So fade that red Lego back and, say, okay, now instead of the red Lego, I just want you to raise your hand, or I want you could, give them options, kind of like the Who Wants to, was it the Millionaire Show, phone a friend or ask a teacher, give them those 3 options, because oftentimes I think teachers will say, have you asked a neighbor? Have you done this? Have you reread the directions? And sometimes kids just can't initiate that because it hasn't been explicitly taught. There's a lot of ideas out there, but
we can visit about that. And I'm just going to say there's probably a book that we could read too, because I'm all about reading a book to find some things to do. So yeah, like a little storybook to talk about.
Yeah, and writing a little story about it.
Yeah, not like a book for you to read, but a book to read with him to talk about. Yeah. Well, we can. What I realize we don't have is like our emails or anything, but we're at ESU 16. Lori, Megan, and Lou.
I was gonna say we could write emails down if we put a whiteboard. It's not like a traditional.
Oh, wait.
There's this little guy.
Of course, there's nothing. Is there a marker? Oh, there you go. Right away.
I'll say you could call our office, but
I was gonna say call the office, but I don't think you can reach anybody. They put in an automated system, and I've never. Can you call and get anybody?
No.
I don't like it. It's frustrating. I just don't think it's a good idea. But again, they did not ask me. I have lots of ideas. Let me just tell you that.
That's what they're afraid of.
I think that's probably
right.
Yeah. I think they just they kind of like to keep me in my corner. They just keep her there.
I don't know how I'm gonna. It's M Lantis. Whoops.
Oh, here you go.
Can you guys see this?
Oh, wait. You show it to the people here, but watch this. I know this. I think.
What?
Is that it, people?
No.
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 No? Oh, let me find
It's
it.
the other way.
Oh, wait.
But they're looking at us from there. So.
Yeah.
Is it
So
on
it
the
has to be.
computer?
Oh, wait.
Well, you can just write it down. M Lantis, LANTIS at ESU 16, and it's spelled out SIXTEEN.org. And then Lou is L Cox -4 at ESU16.org.
How about,
Atlantis.
I know that Nancy said she was going to get me, or Brandy said she was going to get me some information on the 504 presentation. Does she have an email?
Well, I'm sure she does.
Yeah.
What is North Platts? Are they like B. Busher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
NPPSD.org.
NPPSD.org.
Is it BUS?
CH?
What was it, MPP?
SD.org.
Okay. Brandy, should I just email you and you can get me that information? Oh,
She scooted out.
Yeah, she's.
Okay.
She had a grant meeting that she had to go to.
Right. I'll just email her.
Yeah.
I'll email her. Okay.
And if it bounces back, let me know and we'll send it to you. Because we can send you we can send you this as well.
The parent.
I think we have that, actually.
Do you have this one? Okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the tech gal, I said you can share that electronically because we had it, but.
Yeah, we have a copy of that, the parent IEP information sheet, so.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Did I
great.
say Lori's email? Did you guys get that? LVAC, VAK, at esu16.org?
Amblantis, LVAT, there you go. And why we have to spell out ESU 16, I don't get that. See, that's another thing. Stop, just stop. Okay, all right. I got ideas, but you're right, they don't hear. Do you guys find that, I mean, have you had a lot of experience with parents who are frustrated with the IEP process or judges that are telling you things? Because that was one of the things that we thought we were, when we were asked to do this, they said, some of our systems of care people need to know about this more because judges are saying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Just get those kids an IEP, and it's not quite like that. Have you guys had that experience? I'm just curious.
With Judge Payne being new, she's from a cook. She doesn't quite know how our systems work, and she didn't know what TLC was and a few of our other educational things. To where she said things close to that, to where let's get this kid some special help and this and that, to where I don't think she knows the steps of what we have to do. Turnbull's pretty good at, he kind of knows what's going on.
Kind of knows how to get there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll put it in the orders, to where if there's any signs that the kid might be struggling, like all our truancy cases, he puts the IEP in the order, so that way if probation needs to be able to do that process, we can do it without having to go back to court.
Okay. Okay. So you can get that. Do you sometimes have to start the testing process for kids then?
I haven't, but I know in the office they've had to, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
I'm new to all of it.
Okay. All right. That's another whole different world for us.
Yeah.
Is that the juvenile justice system? So anything that we need to know to help you guys, don't ever hesitate to say, y'all are doing this and it's crazy, but if you did this, it would be a whole lot better. We would welcome that, so.
Well, if the judge doesn't issue the order, then people don't have to do it.
That's true.
And
That's
so
true.
the judge, a lot of times it has to start with the judge saying that you need to do this.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, she can't force the IEP to be established, but she can say, you need to make the evaluation.
Right, so she can order an evaluation, and based
And
on
so-
that, then you
So
go.
that's how it starts.
Okay.
So the troubles I see the most is more parents that refuse to identify or accept that their child may have a learning disability, and they're just in complete denial of, no, he doesn't need special classes, he doesn't need to be in with those kids and this and that, to where with the judge putting in the orders, probation can actually kind of bypass the parent and throw it in there to where they still have their rights, but we don't have to have their signed permission to be able to implement the IEP.
And I feel bad because I think oftentimes special education does have a very negative connotation. Those kids, I mean, and that's what they say, those kids, or they think of, and really, all an IEP is, I think, is allowing kids to have what they need to be successful in their environment. Whatever that looks like. And it doesn't have to be super negative or anything like that. I mean, and just because you have an IEP does not mean that you won't be a successful adult.
I was on an IEP when I was little.
I
had
had
probation.
I had to request assessment for my son. He was in first grade, and I said, "Oh, he is not reading where he should be." And the classroom teacher said, "Oh, he's fine. Such a bright boy." I said, "He's not reading." "Oh, he can read those stories." I said, I said, "Cover up the pictures." But he's a storyteller. Great verbal skills. Tell you a story like no other. Cover up the pictures. He really didn't know how to read those words. He was memorizing the story and just telling her. And she was like, "Oh, but he's so bright." Okay,
Right.
but that reading was just really tough for him, and so he struggled probably first through fifth a lot. high school was better for him, but then he went to college, and I made him go to the Student Services Center and sign up for extended time or testing in a different place or whatever. And the gal said, "Anybody ever told you you have ADD?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, all the time." Parent of the year, whatever here I am. Actually, so then he got on medication for that, was able to focus a whole lot better, and is now teaching. He's a 4th grade teacher. I mean, so just because a kid has an IEP, and I think parents need to know, that doesn't mean that your kid won't be successful. It doesn't mean that they can't do great things that they're, I mean, sometimes we all learn differently, and sometimes we just need a little extra support to get where we need to be. And I think that we sometimes don't do a very good job of being advocates for that ourselves, to let people know that it's really okay.
It's really kind of a golden ticket, really. Sometimes it can
Yeah.
be to get kids
Mine was.
what they need. Yeah.
So I had the same issue as I couldn't read. I got held back in 1st grade. I could do 3rd grade math, but I couldn't read at a 1st grade level. But then after the IEP, I wasn't until about 5th or 6th grade. And I went to Adams, which was a complete culture shock. But because of that IEP, I was able to do better functioning in a bigger school. Still sucked, but it was a lot better.
Well, I think when we learn advocates for themselves to say, whoa, I gotta have that information, I gotta listen to that because I'm never gonna be able to keep up with the amount of stuff you're asking to read. Or whoa, turn off those lights because they're wonky. So.
All right. Any other questions or comments or?
Thank y'all for being here.
Yeah, and we do have a parent series. We're just gonna put a plug in because you guys
Mm-hmm.
have contact with parents. We started it regularly the 2nd Tuesday of every month in the evening. And the topics change, whether it be, like the one coming up tomorrow night is on summer camps. Oh, tonight, today's Tuesday. Yeah, sorry, I thought today was Monday. Whew, I'm glad it's not. But we cover lots of different things. We have those information things can be found on the ESU 16 Facebook site for what the topics are. We'll be developing our list for next year's topics, probably at a meeting in about 2 weeks. And we'll get kind of a preliminary flyer out, but yeah, we'll go through, we have, like this year we did the IEP, we did sexuality and individuals with disabilities, summer camps, guardianship,
benefits analysis, SSI benefits analysis.
Where do you meet at?
at the ESU office.
1221 West 17th. Right by Madison and just north of the cemetery.
Good placement.
Yeah. But we'd love to have more parent involvement, so.
And we felt real frustrated. We put them together and we had several days that parents just didn't show up. And I know that it's hard. And we do usually feed them a little bit, so.
All right.
What time is the
Is it
group
kid
usually?
friendly if we had?
You know, it could be. We've not had kids come. We've had older kids come, I guess, sometimes.
We could make it work.
But we could
though.
definitely make it work.
Especially, yeah, especially if we know ahead of time, because we've,
It's not like there's not stuff there
We
for
got
kids to
plenty
do
of
and
kid
people
stuff.
that know how to play with kids, so, yeah.
yeah, if that makes it easier in your world.
If you need to sign in, please sign in with your sign-in sheet back there, just so we know you're here.
Okay.
What time is the group usually on Tuesdays?
We usually 5:30,
6.
What time is it, Lori?
That's 6.
6.
6 to 7:30.
6 to 7:30? Is usually kind of what we do?
6 to 7:30.
Okay. So, yeah.
We had the parent training, the PTI lady come too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Sandy Peterson came.
She came from Omaha. I was crushed. Nobody else was there.
And then Cheryl Bells did the Health and Human Services, came and talked about DD and the sign up for that.
Alrighty. Bunches.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.